July 31st, 2016. 18th Sunday in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the book of Ecclesiastes. Vanity of vanities, says Koheleth. Vanity of vanities. All things are vanity. Here is one who has labored with wisdom and knowledge and skill, and yet to another who has not labored over it, he must leave property. This also is vanity and a great misfortune. For what profit comes to man from all the toil and anxiety of heart with which he has labored under the sun? All his days sorrow and grief are his occupation. Even at night his mind is not at rest. This also is vanity. The word of the Lord.
Turn man back to dust, saying, Return, O children of men. For 1,000 years in your sight are as yesterday, now that it is past, or as a watch of the night. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. You make an end of them in their sleep. The next morning they are like the changing grass, which at dawn springs up anew, but by evening wilts and fades. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain wisdom of heart. Return, O Lord, how long? Have pity on your servants. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Fill us at daybreak with your kindness, that we may shout for joy and gladness all our days. And may the gracious care of the Lord our God be ours. Prosper the work of our hands for us, prosper the work of our hands. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts.
A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Colossians. Brothers and sisters, if you were raised with Christ, seek what is above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Think of what is above, not of what is on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ your life appears, then you too will appear with him in glory. Put to death, then, the parts of you that are earthly: immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and the greed that is idolatry. Stop lying to one another, since you have taken off the old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed for knowledge in the image of its Creator. Here there is not Greek and Jew, circumcision and uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. The word of the Lord.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, Teacher, tell my brother to share the inheritance with me. He replied to him, Friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbitrator? Then he said to the crowd, Take care to guard against all greed, for though one may be rich, one's life does not consist of possessions. Then he told them a parable. There was a rich man whose land produced a bountiful harvest. He asked himself, "What shall I do? For I do not have space to store my harvest." And he said, "This is what I shall do. I shall tear down my barns and build larger ones. There I shall store all my grain and other goods. And I shall say to myself, now as for you, you have so many good things stored up for many years. Rest, eat, drink, be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this night your life will be demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, to whom will they belong? Thus will it be for all who store up treasure for themselves, but are not rich in what matters to God." The Gospel of the Lord.
July 31st, the 18th Sunday in Ordinary Time. The first reading comes from the book of Koheleth, chapter 1, verse 2, and chapter 2, verses 21 to 23. The name Koheleth means the preacher, so we don't know if this was the actual name of the prophet or whether it was simply a title given to him. Koheleth especially preached against the idea that we can figure out what God wants and exactly how we should live our lives. He considers it much more a mystery. And so he speaks about a number of different ways that one can choose to live one's life, and says all of them are vanity. No matter how much you try to decide this is what's going to happen, it's not going to happen that way. So you might as well get used to it and do the best you can. Those who labored for wisdom and for knowledge, they're going to die, and they're going to leave their property to others. Those who work hard to build up a lot of possessions, they're going to die. They're going to leave their property to others. There's nothing that you really can carry to the grave. And remember, at this time, not all the Jews believed in an afterlife. And in fact, Koheleth doesn't seem to. He seems to believe in the idea of Sheol. So once you die, you have nothing, because Sheol is not a reward or a punishment. It's simply a holding tank for all those who have died. The second reading is from Colossians 3, 1 to 5 and 9 to 11. It speaks about the fact that if we died with Christ, then we have to live with Him. And living with Him means we give up all the previous faults, all the previous bad habits and tendencies that we had in order to live like Jesus lived. And within this life, there are no divisions like there once were. There's no Greek or Jew, circumcision or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free. Now, this letter is not calling for a liberation of all slaves. It's not saying that nationalities don't mean anything. What it is saying is that all of these things which once were considered important, which once divided the chosen people from those who were not, are insignificant now in the light of Christ's redemption. The Gospel is from Luke 12, 13 to 24. A man asked Jesus to be an arbiter between him and his brother concerning his father's inheritance. And Jesus says these things are not important. And he gives the example of the man who had a very large farm and had a bountiful harvest. He decided to tear down his barns and build bigger barns so that he could store all of the harvest. Well, that very night he died, and what could he carry to heaven with him? Nothing. And so we should live as if today were our last day. We should live with the idea that we trust in the providence of God and not worry about possessing a lot of things which really don't bring us joy. And may God bless us.